Agio Satanis, my friends. It is your favorite Dark Sorcerer, Michael Hyson, aka Angelus, son of Abaddon. Today I'd like to discuss necromancy, myth and facts. A lot of people, when they look at necromancy, they tend to shy away from it because of two reasons. One, it's dubbed the number one feared religious practice. It is the number one most deadliest practice out there. If you look at the seven forbidden arts, it is number one for a reason. And the reason for that is because of what transpires during necromantic practice, rituals, ceremonies, even, and what a necromancer can do. The second aspect of why they shun or sly away from it is due to the Hollywood persona and what people have come to believe that necromancy is about. All right. Now, we all know that there are two types of necromantic rituals that are placed on the table. The first is conjuration. Conjuration is where you summon a spirit through circle of empowerment, the triangle of evocation. Okay. There have been many instances throughout history where this particular technique has been utilized by occultists and left-hand path practitioners. Hello, Seeking Serpent 6. Welcome to the video. The second aspect to this is that of reanimation. Now, when it comes to reanimation, it is one of those type of practices that can be clearly associated with devil worship, summoning beings like Mephistopheles, for an example. If we go back to the 15th century, the 14th and 15th century, we see the Bouchard, okay, the Faustbach, okay, the play by Dr. Faust, okay, the being who made the first contact with a demon, a devil, known as the Faustian deal, okay. We've also seen parts of this within Homer's Odyssey, okay. So, I mean, is it really that hard to expand into chiromancy, the spiritual summoning of a spirit? But in this case, rejuvenation of a corpse requires the use of blood sorcery. It requires the formulation of understanding the energy currents of inside and outside, not only the practitioner, but the very corpse that you're working with. Okay. And what this is you are directing a spirit either back into their own body or that of, say, another body. Okay. Sorceress Cagliostro, the necromancer, refers to this as the reincarnate or disincarnate, I should say. You see, the disincarnate is someone who recently passed away. Okay. But necromancers have been known to call upon spirits going back over to 300 years. This is nothing new. All right. So when we get into necromancy and we see rejuvenation, this area of rejuvenating a corpse has been around for 300 years, 4 at best. Today, you have to go to school and become an MD, get a professional doctor's license to do this stuff legally. Okay. Now, when we look at the different aspects of rejuvenation, everything from freezing a corpse to injecting blood and adrenaline into it to electricity, okay, blood magnetics. This is all stuff that has been involved with rejuvenation of corpses, such as in necromancy, okay, going back 300 years. And I'm just talking right now, just in the medical attributes, okay, the medical field. This is stuff that's been around, and you can actually Google this aspect. Okay, just go in and Google it. Just a 2-second Google search brings up a whole slew of information dealing with both necromancy and rejuvenation of corpses. If you go into books like The Black Arts by Richard Cavendish, or that of, say, oh, I don't know, let's go with Doctrine and Rituals of High Witchcraft or High Magic by Eliphas Levi, perhaps even Edward Arthur White's book on the book of ceremonial magic or black magic. Okay. Go into The Magus by Francis Barrett. Okay. This is volume 1. Don't even get me started on volume 2 of that wonderful grimoire. Okay. That classifies the ranking systems of the different intelligences. You will see the same thing that you'll see in, say, for an example, the historical accounts within the Witch's Book of the Dead by Christian Day, the Munich manuscripts, okay, by Richard Kinkefer, okay, in this case, the Forbidden Rites, okay, Necromancy, the Forbidden Art by Lucien Raphael, okay, or perhaps even Mastering Witchcraft by Paul Huzon, Blood Sorcery Bible Volume 1 and 2 by Sorceress Cagliostro, the Necromancer. All right. Those books there are just simple books that you can get off Amazon or eBay that really discuss and breaks down not only the historical accounts of witchcraft, but also that of the value of it. Okay. The different techniques and tools that you can use just in necromancy alone, the black arts. But people don't really go past the Greek definition. The Greek definition is necro, meaning dead or corpse, vigor mortis, if you wish. It is the practice of corpse, the rejuvenation of a dead person, a dead body. Think Frankenstein's monster. But when we get into it, the art of the dead, or the practice of death magics, da'ath, in the Klopothic sense, is right there. Most people don't go beyond that. They don't even go back in time. And when you do, you'll go back, say, 500 years, you see it associated with vampirism, where blood sorcery was actually brought into necromancy to ward off the da'ath energies, the negative energies known as death energies, that afflict very painfully the practitioner of necromantic rites and rituals. Go back 1,000 years, and you see how it was associated with shamanism. And it's no longer necromancy at this point, but nigromancy. Nigro, as in the rite of black magic, the practice of black magic. Okay? This is stuff that's been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And with every system that becomes dominant, a little piece of it gets lost, and you have to go back in time to find it. Lately, over the last year, I've been working a lot with the Mazajira Cabal system, the Necromancy rites, working with the Buried Kings, Azazel, working with the Sith, better yet known as the Sadi. Okay, the Sadi are known as the people of the mounds, and each tribe has their own mound, okay, to which they reside, their home. Okay, and there's a lot of practices that not only show respect to these beings in Fey lore, okay, but are also very similar to that of, say, the Dralith, the Dark Elven, the Elven, okay, from the Germanic root, the Indo-European root, the Slavic root, okay, not just the Anglo-Saxon or Celtic, even the Irish, okay. Now the Sith, as it's pronounced in Irish, or that of Scottish, the Sadi, okay, these are beings of death. They're associated with, in one form or another, demons or demonolatry, the spiritual aspects of chiromancy. When you get into the Dralith, the Elven in folklore, okay, that of Fey practices, you see how the Dark Elven or the Black Elven are associated with death. You see how they're associated with, say, some form of death, like, say, plagues, devastation, destruction. All of this stuff plays into their myth and their legends throughout the European roots. But they've also been known as little people, such as hobbits, and as they are in Indo-European traditions. Okay, they've been seen from everything from pale to living underground, having their own city to which you need a gateway or portal to. Okay, you deal with the witches of the depths. Okay, get into where their power is rooted in the deepest pits of the underworld, the hells, and they utilize the power of witchcraft to not only to empower their own magics, but aid the practitioner. When we work with, say, the banshee, okay, the banshee is a predictor. She basically predicts someone's death. Now, the Sith are similar to her, to that mythos of the banshee, whereas the Dralith, the Elven, are associated and similar to that of the Draconic, the dragon. Dragons have always been associated with fire. They've always been associated as hoarders, such as that of riches and knowledge. Okay? Same thing with the Elven. Okay? You see two classifications of the Elven. You see those that reside in the celestial body, those that aid humanity, those who deal with knowledge and immortality. And then you see the darkness, the dark elves, the black elves who are associated with death and vile diseases and afflictions, okay, such as devastation and plagues. And when we get down into the Greek definition, you have the daemon perspective, okay? But it's not just in these areas. When you go into different traditions, the zombie, such as the zombie powder in Haitian voodoo, you have that of the European roots in vampirism, the vampire. Okay, when we look at the ceremonies and the traditions of Haitian voodoo, the way they prepare carefully, paying a close attention to every detail of the burial, okay, of their loved ones. We see how they fear the Bokor, because of that zombie powder. They didn't want their loved ones to come back as a zombie. And if the Bokor has done their job right, utilizing the zombie powder, they would bring these individuals back as slaves to do their will, their bidding, much in the same way as the Jewish custom of the what do they call those things? I forget the name already, but that's right there. It just doesn't want to come out at this point, but it will. There's a Jewish tradition that is very similar to that of the zombie. But when we get into, say, for example, the European route, you see the vampire myth where they would walk a horse throughout the cemetery, and if the horse would not go over a grave, then that being was going to be a vampire and come back and drain the life force from the living, meaning the sacred elixir, the blood. Okay, again, blood sorcery. Okay, the elixir. When we get into the black dog mythos, the hellhounds, we see where their mythos are associated with Hecate, okay, Hades, and their job is to bring the souls to the underworld or to retrieve the souls of someone that has either escaped or is doomed to spend eternity in the land of the shadows. You go into, say, the Wraith, the Reverend, the Reaver, same exact thing. They're agents of death. And of course, as a necromancer, you're going to have one foot in the grave and one in reality, much like the shaman living one foot in the spiritual, in the other, in the world. And if you pay close attention to the practices, you see how they will wear the clothes of the corpse. Perhaps even in Palo Mayumbi or Santeria, where the rituals take part in wearing the clothes of the disincarnate, of a loved one, a family member even. Same exact thing, except for a necromancer would lay on the tomb. They would sleep in a coffin that belonged to that individual. They would wear these sackcloths or what is now, these old raggedy clothes. These are the myths and legends of necromancers. Okay. But as I said, I've been following and studying, practicing even all the rites, the histories of the Mazajira Cabal system of the land of Caractères, working with Zashira, the Witch of the Depths, working with Zazazel, the Buried King. And I've had a lot of great success with just these few beings that I've been working with for the last 4 to 6 months. And what's interesting to note is that even with the smaller rites, like the Arcane Ethereal Shield, very, very powerful ritual. And it's just a matter of just taking an item of pure silver and stating the whisper. It occurred just as Subna Stridward described in the rites of the 13 tongues. A lot of what I've done is from the 13 tongues and from other things like the Eye of the Oracle and working with profane seals. The best book that I've ever gotten of by him is the Black Scriptures, and when you want a good, well-written grimoire, you gotta go with Charnel Whispers. Literally, I've read this book time and time again over the last year. I couldn't put it down. I read this entire book within about 3 days. Okay, that's in between going to work, taking care of a 2-year-old, and literally, dealing with chores and other distractions. 3 days is all it took. You know, like I said, Profane Seals. Okay, Profane Seals is one of those books that has a lot of seals in it, a lot of sigils, and they may be hard to draw for a lot of people, but they're well worth it. I've got them up around my place. A lot of them. I've drawn them. Sometimes I have to sketch them over the symbol itself because I can't get them right, so I have to make sure to draw them over the picture in the book so that I have them, but I'm still drawing them. Okay. Then you have the Black Scriptures. The Black Scriptures is one of those books that deal with meditations. It deals with certain remedies, even such as oleums for meditation, the meditations and stuff like that, but also so much more. And I concur with you. Salute 367. The Mazagir Cabal system is amazing. It's one of the purest forms of sorcery that is out there. And by far, in my experience, out of 29 years of practicing everything from grimoire magic to ceremonial magics to everything from shamanism to palo, mayambi, voodoo, voodoo, quimbanda, satanism, witchcraft. I've studied a lot over 29 years. I've practiced a lot. I've never seen anything this potent as with the Mazagir Cabal system. Now, recently, I participated in writing an essay for a book by Edgar Cavall, a very well-known black magician and sorcerer from South America. Okay, and he came to me. I sent him a friend request like a year or so before, and I never heard anything back. And then out of the blue, he just contacts me, and we ended up talking. And he asked me if I'd write a an essay for his book, and I said sure. What's it about? And he told me. He says it's Sabbatica. It's based off necromantic rites and rituals. So I ended up writing a 4,043 word essay for him, and turned it in within less than a month. I did all the studying, pulled all kinds of research, and anything I could find from my personal library that had even a mention of necromancy to it. Wrote down a lot of things, my own personal um, experiences at the very end, but I named it the feared. Basically, I named it the feared art of necromancy, and it was very well written because of the fact that the aspects of necromancy and the way it's been used and feared from the blackest of arts and how it's the tools and the methods that were employed to the medical field, herbalism even, and to see how spirits were summoned and used, how they were seen as being demons, the jinn, the whole kit and caboodle. And I would have gone further, but it just seemed by the time I got to that 4,043 word mark, it just seemed like a great place to stop. And I didn't know why at the time. So now I do, actually, because now that I got my hands on the he sent me the book, and I've gone through a lot of this stuff, a lot of these different types of necromancy, from personalized rituals to personal practices from other magicians and sorcerers in the field of necromancy. And I never really thought to get into Aztec. I've gone into I have a friend who happens to be Incan, so I ended up going into Incan practices, and I ended up getting into the practices of the shamanism and the medicine men and all that aspects from their systems. But I never occurred to go one step up and get into the Aztecs. I mean, the Aztecs I was aware of. They have a lot of good material from their ceremonies and the rituals, giving living corpse, body parts, such as displaying the the sacrifice on the altar, ripping their hearts out and giving it as an offering to the sun god, you know, to their sun god and to the Lord of the Dead, stuff like that, much in the same way as the ancient Gaelic druids did, with their altars of blood sorcery, blood magics. So, I mean, there's so much there that we haven't really, how should I say this? We haven't really delved into over the years. A lot of practitioners tend to stick to what is written by very few publicized and highly recommended practitioners such as Elvis Levi, Aleister Crowley, um, White, the Grand Grimoire Red Dragon, the Grimoire of Pope Honorius, even. But very few individuals actually delve into the Black Pellet. Very few people tend to delve into grimoires such as the Black Raven, known as the Threefold Coercion of Hell. Okay, the Grimoire of Armadale, and a few other grimoires that you rarely hear from because most practitioners tend to go with either the Grimoire of Armadale, the Grimoire of Honorius, or they go with the Solomantic practices. But outside of that, it's always Crowley, Eliphas Levi, and White. So when you do come across somebody who's actually studied outside of this stuff, it's it's very exhilarating because you get to study with them. You get to see where their practices have taken them. So to have a book full of various different practitioners who have their own experience in necromancy is very exciting because you get to learn how they became necromancers. You get to understand where they're coming from. And it's that mutual respect. It's that mutual honor to see a fellow practitioner in the same traditions and arts and how they perform their rituals, their rites, and how they approach the topic at hand. It's very, very exciting. But if you want to learn good old fashioned necromantic rites, I would say look no further than Shall Now Whispers. You know, get into, say, for an example, the Blood Sorcery Bible by Sorceress Cagliostro, the Necromancer. If you want something that's undiluted and unbiased, get into Paul Huzon's book, Mastering Witchcraft. Get in if you want to learn the history of it. Get into the the book of the Witch's Book of the Dead by Christian Day. Get into Necromancy, the Feared Art by Lucian Raphael. Forbidden Rites, the Necromancer's Manual of the 15th Century by Richard Keffer. That book there, that last one, that's been known as the Munich manuscripts, the Munich handbook, even long before this. So it's really nothing new. But you got to understand that there are different regions out there, different types of practices. Necromancers used to be known as leeches, leeches and corpse. This is Slavic, okay? And this is actually a Russian term because it was translated from German, okay, ancient Germanic traditions and put into Russian long before, the lick, the leech, even the necromancer, getting into potent rituals such as the bottom feeders or that of I can't think of the word I want to say right now, but you watch it. I'll get done this, and again, that will come right up, and it's going to be like, damn, that's what I was thinking. Should have said it. But and then if you really want to get into it, get into all these other agents of death. Get into follow their mythos and see where they go and how they relate. All right. And I guarantee it, you're going to be seeing something, a whole nother story that has never been told. It's very fascinating. In the last year, I have come to understand so much when it comes to necromancy rituals, rites, and practices. And a lot of that is due to Sumner Stredwood's works from the Mazajira Cabal system. And I know that where it's taken me, for those of you who wish to get into it, I know you're going to see it. You're going to evolve, and it's going to benefit you in the long run. So, with that said, I hope this has been intellectual. I hope it's been enlightening. And until next time, I'm out.